Order. 10-minute rule motion. Mr. Nic Dakin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having a goal is hugely motivational, especially for young people, and having impartial guidance about what opportunities are available linked to the labour market information should be a given for all young people so that they can set their goals in an informed way. When I stood down as Principal of John Leggett College on election to this House in 2010, careers education, information, advice and guidance was not perfect in our schools and colleges, but it was in a lot better place than it is now. The deterioration of careers education over the last 6 years is deeply concerning. The CBI were quite right to state in their 2015 Education and Skills Survey that careers guidance in schools is not good enough, with more than 3/4 of businesses in the UK saying careers advice was not good enough to ensure young people made informed decisions about their future career options. So it's not surprising to me that a large number of individuals and organisations, on seeing the bill listed on the order paper today, have contacted me to give encouragement. For a long while, the government was in denial about the impact of the plethora of changes combined with significant funding cuts was having on the provision of careers education in schools. To be fair, ministers responsible for careers education, from the Honourable Member for South Holland and the Deepings to the Honourable Member for Harlow, did recognise the deficit, and I believe they made the arguments within government in the same way as employers and educationalists, along with Her Majesty's opposition, made compelling arguments from outside government. But for far too long there was no positive response from government. Then the penny dropped. The response was the establishment of the Careers and Enterprise Company, which I've always seen as an expensive and complicated way of fixing a fairly simple problem. My Big Career is a charity that provides free advice in many disadvantaged areas of the UK. Volunteer career advisors from the independent sector and professions give up their time to go into schools and give free, impartial advice on apprenticeships, university work-related courses, and are overwhelmed by the response. They say that not one school they work with has ever heard of the Careers and Enterprise Company, despite millions being ploughed into this organisation. When I led a Humber LEP Commission into Skills back in 2012-2013, businesses and schools were agreed on the need for better careers education, and both were keen to work with the other to make it happen. But it didn't happen because the pressures of the performance on the bottom line of results makes organisations inward rather than outward looking. What was missing was the capacity and time of business, schools and colleges to coordinate their efforts. And that, in my opinion, is where the resource should be simply and ruthlessly targeted. And the need remains as strong today, Mr Deputy Speaker, as it was then. It's worth pausing, however, to applaud the fantastic work that goes on in many schools despite the pressures and funding challenges. There are some frankly amazing people from both business and education backgrounds working to provide young people impartial information and choice. But a student should have an entitlement to quality careers education that meets an agreed standard wherever they go to school. However, the ambition of my bill is not to transform the whole of careers education, information, advice and guidance so that every young person has a consistent entitlement to quality advice wherever they go to school. Would that I could. No, my bill has a much more limited ambition, Mr Deputy Speaker. It seeks to ensure that at the very least, colleges and post-16 providers can talk directly to school students about the opportunities available to them in their area. Sadly, too many schools, particularly some with their own sixth forms, put obstacles in the way of students receiving this crucial information. The Skills Minister himself, when answering me, said, "I recently visited degree apprenticeships at Gateshead College, whose own school refused them a visit in order to talk about apprenticeship skills and technical education." He was quite rightly outraged at this, but it isn't an isolated case. Colleges all over the country report similar barriers being placed in school students' way. This just isn't good enough. Even in my own area, where generally the situation is good, the two excellent local colleges, North Lindsey and John Leggett, report things becoming more difficult than they used to be. When I met with students and staff at North Lindsey, staff reported access to school students becoming more difficult, and this was confirmed by the student experience. And John Leggett report instances where students have been denied access to careers events because their schools choose not to participate. The pressure on schools to deliver results sometimes leads to an understandable reluctance to provide time for careers education that could otherwise be spent on mainstream studies. But I would argue that once a young person has a personal goal, often linked to where they progress on to next, or a career target, it can motivate them to achieve so much more, thereby transforming their performance in their academic studies. After its inquiry into careers education in July 2016, the Subcommittee on Education, Skills and the Economy found that too many young people are leaving education without having had the chance to fully consider their future options or how their skills and experiences fit with opportunities in the job market. It also judged that a host of policy changes, initiatives and new bodies introduced in recent years have failed to make serious improvements and in some cases have even been counterproductive. It welcomed the government's intention to legislate and recommended that the government set out robust mechanisms to ensure that the new law is well publicised and properly enforced. In its response, the government said it was determined to tackle the patchy state of careers provision and raise its importance and profile in schools. It said new legislation should be publicised and properly enforced, and it made a commitment to update existing careers statutory guidance to ensure that schools are clear about what they need to do to comply with any new legal requirements prior to them coming into force. The government made clear its intention to publish a comprehensive career strategy for all ages. The Post-16 Skills Plan reiterated the government's intention to develop an overarching careers strategy, and last month the government's Industrial Strategy Green Paper once again repeated the pledge, saying we need to do more to empower students, parents and employers to make confident and informed choices about their education and careers options, whether they're in school, technical education or higher education. The previous Secretary of State, the Right Honourable Member for Loughborough, did have plans for legislation that would require schools to allow other providers of education and training to talk to their pupils about opportunities post-16. This was scheduled to be included within the now defunct Education for All bill, with the statement at the time saying schools will be required by law to collaborate with colleges, university technical colleges and other training providers. This seemed to have been shelved. However, there does now appear to be a chink of light at the end of a very long tunnel. Last week, the Noble Lord Baker put forward an amendment to the Technical and Further Education Bill that was accepted by the government, which says schools must ensure that there is an opportunity for a range of education and training providers to access pupils to inform them about technical educational qualifications or apprenticeships. That is a very positive move, but the government can seize the opportunity of my bill to go that bit further, in line with their earlier intention and ambition. The 10-minute rule bill I moved today, the Careers Guidance Access to Schools bill, would ensure that school pupils have access to information from the providers of post-16 pathways locally direct to them. It will require schools in England to provide access to their premises and pupils to post-16 education establishments and other providers. This would significantly improve the quality of information available to young people when they make decisions about their future. As such, it would be a great step forward. All my experience, Mr. Deputy Speaker, tells me that education delivers best when it's focused on the interests of learners, not the interests of providers. Learners, young people, deserve a careers education, information, advice and guidance system focused on them, one that delivers information directly to them. That is what this bill will achieve. Schools cannot deliver professional and independent careers advice and guidance on their own. They are not best placed to talk about the benefits of career pathways and courses post-16 or technical and professional education or apprenticeships. Colleges and training providers are. Colleges recognise the critical nature of good careers education and are keen to work with their local schools. These changes to access need to happen. They can no longer be swept under the carpet. We owe every young person this entitlement to information so that they can achieve their potential and find the best routes into the right career. And what will benefit our young people will benefit our businesses and economy. It will benefit us all.
The question is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. Does many of that opinion say aye? Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Who will prepare to bring in the bill?
Neil Carmichael, John Pugh, Kelvin Hopkins, Caroline Lucas, Jason McCartney, Martin Vickers, Danny Kinahan, Jenny Chapman, Angela Smith, Lucy Powell, Lillian Greenwood and myself, sir.
Nic Dakin.
Careers Guidance Access to Schools Bill.
Second reading what day?
24th of March.
24th of March. Well done, Nick. Perfect. Right. We now come to the motion.